Hello and welcome to EUR News. My name is Marin Lucic. Let's dive in. The People's Republic of China continues to draw controversy over allegations that it is detaining members of the Uyghur ethnic group en masse in the Xinjiang province. While the US has imposed sanctions on the Xinjiang region and officials, the EU's response has been muted. Seeking to change that, we have three members of Rotterdam's most elite think tank, Think Outside the Socks. Here now with us is Joost. Joost, what policy exactly are you recommending the EU take with regard to the Uyghurs?
Yes, thank you, Marin. And first of all, thank you for having our think tank here on your show and able to explain our proposal for additional policy in this crucial matter. Because we've taken stock of the existing policies and the existing measures that Europe is taking against the PRC to stop them in their human rights violations against their Uyghur population. And what becomes very evident is that we need additional policy that is based on raising awareness and that is also less confrontational and non-aggressive and more bottom-up approach. And therefore, we propose to incorporate Central Asian cultures, their diaspora, the Tajik, the Kazakh, Turkic, and especially the Uyghur population, to incorporate their culture in the current European Heritage Days program. Now, the aim of this program, which is a joint program between the European Commission and the Council of Europe, so it has 50 states as a member, their goal is to raise awareness on the preservation of cultural heritage and to counter racism, to counter xenophobia, and to inform the public and political authorities on the threats that cultural heritage faces. And it's also an invitation to act, basically. And we want to offer this in a digital offering, which is in line with COVID, but also allows us to really connect and to give a voice to the diaspora in Europe of the Uyghur population, especially given that they're such an endangered culture and their cultural heritage is endangered. Now, this program doesn't come from nowhere. It's in line with the EU Action Plan on Human Rights and Democracy, which has the goal to create such a social platform which raises awareness and also drives opinion change. And also, it falls under the European Framework for Action on Cultural Heritage, with the goal to safeguard endangered cultural heritage. And we can really say that it is endangered as their cultural and religious sites are bulldozed over, their language is restricted, their cultural figures, they're put in detention. And it's in the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union to act on this and to safeguard cultural heritage, also the diaspora in Europe. And therefore, with our proposal to incorporate them in the European Heritage Days, we can raise awareness and we can increase the necessary pressure to increase the measures against the PRC.
Thanks, Joost. That was very clear and insightful. I appreciate the illumination. Let's now turn to Yosha. Yosha, why do we need a new policy at all? What do existing EU policies look like?
Well, the strength of this proposal, Marin, is that it is nested within the EU's long-term approach towards China, but that it simultaneously also circumvents the issues of lack of coherency and consistency stemming from the EU's internal disunity on the human rights agenda. So the EU's latest strategic document on EU-China relations, in which your proposal would nicely fit, which was adopted in 2016 and updated in 2019, sets out a fourfold approach towards China, consisting of negotiation, dialogue, cooperation, and systemic rivalism based on the EU's values and interests. With regards to the human rights agenda, the EU has an additional few mechanisms, among which are the recurring human rights dialogues, the yearly EU-China summits, and the recently adopted global human rights sanction regime. However, currently the EU is still suffering from both intra and interinstitutional disagreement, wherein the European Parliament and the Commission, but especially the Parliament, place greater value on human rights, whereas the Councils both grant greater attention towards the EU's economic interest and trade relations with China. And also between member states, you see that there's a disagreement about whether values or trade ties and economic interests should be favored, or vice versa. So even though the EU has a structure in place through which it can address human rights violations in the Xinjiang region in China, it lacks the unanimous vote to push its agenda on human rights forward. So our bottom-up approach would circumvent this, and also due to the fact that it has a less politicized feeling to it than, for example, targeted sanctions.
Thank you, Yosha. That seems very simple. But my question is, what will change with your proposal? For more on that, let's turn to Karsten. Karsten?
Well, to tell you the truth, Marin, the first thing that we would like to change is the current lack of public awareness and engagement regarding China's human rights abuses in the Xinjiang region. At the moment, what has become clear is that a significant amount of European countries, entities, and also especially citizens have remained largely silent on the matter. In the past, however, Europe and its citizens were rather quick to judge and condemn others, such as Myanmar, for their actions against their Muslim populations. What we would therefore like to see is the type of civil society awareness and engagement that we have simply seen before. Ideal would be the level of concern and mobilization that we saw recently when people actively and passionately demonstrated against police brutality and racial inequality in the United States. Our recommendation, therefore, has a central aim of tackling this lack of public awareness and engagement by providing the Uyghurs with a platform to share their unique cultural heritage and raise awareness regarding their ethnic persecution within Chinese territory. We hope such a platform will increase public awareness surrounding the human rights abuses and thereby allow for European civil society to start mobilizing and pressuring their governments into actively pursuing China's inhumane practices. So far, however, the grassroots level is not mobilized sufficiently, and this is ultimately what we aim to change. We find a first and crucial step towards large-scale civil society mobilization and engagement in awareness raising. Through this route, we hope our proposed initiative can induce a more active and engaged European public when it comes to the manner in which the Uyghurs are being treated in China.
Now, there's a big economic, political, and social gulf between the EU and China, which leaves a lot of room for things to go wrong. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? What exactly could go wrong with this proposal?
Yeah, of course. Well, there's a lot of risks that we have to take in order for this pressing issue to be dealt with. But we first of all think that we definitely have to do so because so far the EU has not had a single unified voice on this issue. So first of all, I'd like to re-emphasize that we consider awareness raising to be a crucial prerequisite for the ability of civil society to mobilize and also put pressure on their respective governments. That being said, the platform that we aim to create by the means of the European Cultural Heritage Days is one that is European-wide and will also be widely publicized. So it is only to be expected that China will in some form, whether it be discursive, economic, or political, react to our initiative, especially as soon as it becomes clear that the central theme of the European Cultural Heritage Days will revolve around Europe's Uyghur minority, which is a rather sensitive topic at the time, and one could only wonder why, of course. We have, however, estimated and hoped that it won't come to that direct punitive measures, as ultimately we deem our recommendation to be less controversial than, for instance, say, legal actions or sanctions that do impose direct costs on the Chinese government. Awareness raising, on the other hand, will lead to costs in a more indirect manner, as firstly, the civil society will have to become aware, after which they can mobilize, and only then will they be able to pressure their governments, which is hopefully a bit more of a long-term issue. And therefore, we deem our initiative to be a bit less sensitive with regards to, for instance, the potential sanctions or legal actions that could be taken instead. Additionally, what we also have to consider is that maybe not all member states will feel comfortable with our central theme. This is not too big of an issue, however, as the events will be broadcasted online, and thereby we still think that our initiative will reach the intended audience, even if several countries choose not to participate. Therefore, we are relatively confident that our initiative will be a step in the right direction towards an engaged European public.
Joost, Yosha, Karsten, thank you so much for joining us and presenting your rather creative policy proposal. Well, there you have it. A low, cost-effective way for the EU to raise awareness for a pertinent human rights issue in the PRC. Next up, scientists are saying that students in college are learning via the coronavirus how to give presentations on Zoom with hangovers more easily and more frequently. More on that at 11.